had significantly higher APM, and who went Cookie Cutter, Demon Hunter, Dryad Bear. I'll have to look and see which replay that was later on, but just something to notice there. So this Night Elf player is just playing very, very not defensively. He's just kind of creeping and countering, I guess is the way to do it. He's C and C, so he hasn't really even scouted the undead that much and doesn't know that necromancers are going to be part of this, or that necro-wagons are going to be part of it. He does scout it out soon and finds that out, but the longer you can keep your opponent guessing if you're going to do that strategy or not, the better you're off. You know, you can do that by hiding your Temple of Dams in the back, or sliding your slaughterhouse in the back, or again just keeping your opponent busy so he can't scout your base or isn't in your base as much. Obviously, on the other side of that, the flip side of that, you need to find out if your opponent's going necro wagon so you can kind of counter that. We'll talk about counters later on. We'll see what this player does to counter them. Generally, a good counter to it is your secondary hero being Panda Brewmaster. I've seen Chimera as being really, really good counter versus as well, doing all those bonus damage versus the heavy armored meat wagons who are already low hit points. One or two shots from a good Chimera will take it out really quickly. A little bit of hit and runs here. Both players not willing to commit to anything right at the moment, which is a good thing. The Night Elf player is doing the smart thing here of setting up an expansion. He possibly could have done that a little bit earlier. Here's one of the first mistakes I think that the Undead player made. He does have 2 Temple of Dams right now, and check out his one in the back right now. Look what he's got going on. He's got Necromancer Adept Training, he's got Skeletal Mastery, Skeletal Longevity, and he's got 2 Necromancers, all in the same queue on the same Temple of the Damned. But look up front. He's got another Temple of the Damned. Why isn't he putting any of those abilities being researched there, or to summon some more Necromancers? This strategy is all about timing. It's already 12 minutes into the game. He should have his Necromancers out about now, even considering that he progressed a lot slower than other people who typically do this strategy. If it's getting to be 15 minutes into the game, it's a completely different playing field, especially versus the Night Elf player who's going a very regular cookie cutter strat. You notice the Night Elf player already has 3 bears out. He's got his dryads coming, so it's the slow down tech of this isn't something you want to do. You wouldn't want to be setting up an expansion for if you were going for the strategy. Just kind of, again, put it an all-in-one bucket kind of strategy. And try to make it happen as fast as possible. This was the kind of the key point, I think, to him losing this game, because the strategy is very effective even now, even how it's powerful. You'll see how effective it is. However, he can't make the game end because he waited too long, I believe. So yeah, you see he's got these 2 Temple of Dams, and he hasn't been using them. He does get the upgraded meat wagon ability, so they can generate corpses, and obviously they're picking up the corpses from the graveyard, which automatically generates corpses as well. And you can pick up corpses off of enemies you kill, blah blah blah. So there are a lot of ways to generate corpses for the necromancers to do it. Now the typical kind of thing you think when you're seeing the strategy is versus Night Elf is, why isn't the Night Elf just going to use his skeletal or use his wisps and mass detonate on the necros and mass dispel on the skeletons that are summoned? And they do that, but it does take a lot of wisps to make it happen. A few of these other replays that you're going to see in the pack is Night Elves will counter it by going Fairy Dragons, and actually you see that a lot in the replays where the Night Elf loses. So I wouldn't consider Fairy Dragons a very good counter to that. Even if the Necromancers are on auto-cast, summoning all those skeletons, it's just easy enough to counter with a Scroll of Healing, and it really doesn't do, the Mana Flare doesn't do as much damage as it really needs to pick off those Necromancers. It's a nice thing, but even in mass, those Fairy Dragons aren't going to be able to do enough, and they're easy targets, because when they're in their flare mode, the Mage Casters, or the Mage skeletons that the Necromancers summon, easily can pick them off in conjunction with the Necromancers. But you see how slow it's already 16 minutes in the game. We're looking at about halfway through the game, and you can already see it's going to last a little bit, considerably longer. And like I said earlier, this strategy is reliant on necro-wagons, reliant on getting those necromancers and meat wagons out as fast as possible. We're not going to see that here. And you see he's really making some good hits here. He doesn't have a Scroll Town Portal here, which is very, very dangerous. And he's just kind of creeping and playing too slow with just his ghouls and his hero. He's got a whole army of necro wagons in the base, but he hasn't been able to do anything with them. He's still not making use of that second Temple of the Dam, which I don't know what he's smoking. He should be making use of that. This is a good thing I think he's doing. At this moment, he's adding Fiends into his army, which is a good idea. So now he's going to have Frenzied Ghouls. He's going to mix in some Fiends to help with that piercing damage against the Dryads. I'm sorry, we did not see Hunts this game. There must have been another one that I was considering here. You also see the auto-cast Dispel or the manual cast Dispel, either way, on the Dryads, doing a very good job of taking off those skeletons when they get summoned. Take a look at the food counts now. We're looking at pretty even food counts. It's 69 to 80. that Panda is a really, really good counter to all those Necromancers. We're going to have level 2 Breath of Fire. You'll watch him to where he places it. You don't want to waste it on the skeletons if you can. Try to get in a position where you're going to be either targeting the hero or you're going to be targeting those Necromancers. And if your opponent, the undead player, isn't carrying Scrolls of Healing, which in this case he is, Breath of Fire is going to be very, very effective. And likewise, that's a good counter to the Panda countering your Necromancers by those Scrolls of Healing. Most of the times when I see undeads playing this strategy, they don't go a secondary hero, which makes it so you can only cast one Scroll of Healing, during the time, and you can't like have multiple Scrolls of Healing on different heroes because you only have the one. So that's a little hurtful there. This Night Elf has had this fast expansion up, or this expansion up, for a good amount of time. I think he does indeed lose it at this point, but you'll see it doesn't matter in the end. All these skeletons and these units end up feeding the Night Elf heroes a lot of experience. You see we already have a level 5 Demon Hunter here. Later on we're going to see that this strategy is effective, but it's not going to be able to beat a high-level Demon Hunter. He can just metamorphosize, got level 2 evasion, level 3 mana burn. He's going to be able to tank a whole army and the undead heroes with no problemo. And that's the danger with the strategy. Again, you can't be taking all these little hits. You can't have all these little fights. You have to be able to make things happen right away. Like I said, timing's so important. If anything I can tell undead players that I've learned from doing my research so far is that timing's important with this. The longer the game drags on, the worse your chances are, your worse your chances are. See, this Night Elf player even has another expansion going. He's got both those regular expansions up on the east and west sides of the map, pumping for his getting additional resources. Again, being able to fortify this high tier 3 army, this huge tier 3 army. He's eventually going to get a lot more bears and more dryads too. Bears, very, very good versus those necromancers. Even if they're using cripple, it's hard for necromancers and necro-wagon to take down a bear. Heavy armor it takes extra from the necromancer's attack, but they still have so many hit points. And roar, the dryads are going to be able to focus on the necromancers too with their piercing damage, which does extra to the unarmored necromancers. And the dispel is very, very good. So Night Elf actually has pretty good options here when fighting this. Now, this is the power of necro-wagon. You'll check this out. The skeletons are and the summons, and we also saw the undeads, the Death Knight's level 6 ability in there. It basically gives a lot of units around. Not that they're doing a lot of damage or that they're very high hit point, but just having so many of them makes it really hard for the Night Elf to maneuver his units around, especially when he's going bears. So you can kind of use that to protect your pure damage in this, which is really your meat wagons and your necromancers in the back along with your hero. It also allows you to freely kind of move your ghouls around so they don't take as many hits. It's hard to control a big army like this. You have to use a lot of force groups and a lot of double clicking to select all your units at once of the same unit type. But you see, check out the food counts now. We're at 67 to 65. We do have 3 heroes on the Night Elf side, which again is going to be a big key why he doesn't end up winning this. But the Undead's doing a good job. He's now finally bringing up his units, and now we're going to see those mass wisps coming in to spell, just how I told you, it's very, very effective. But we still have lots of corpses available in the meat wagon, so the necromancers can keep summing them up. The Dark Ranger, a very good counter to this strategy as well. Dark Ranger can silence those necromancers so they can't. Typically, necromancers are in a very tight ball, so the Dark Ranger with her silence ability can stop them from casting their skeletons if you can catch them all at once. And it lasts a lot longer on units than it does on heroes, so that's effective again. See, the Undead player also is bringing his Obsidian statues. He's been bringing them with all these fights. And he's got the one on mana and one on health, which is typical for Undeads to do. But this helps his Necromancers regain those mana that might be lost from Wisp Detonate or from the Fairy Dragon. So we do see Fairy Dragons in this as well, and from the Mana Burn on the Demon Hunter, sorry. You see Demon Hunter, typical items. If you're not already getting these on your Demon Hunter, I tend to give advice to people who are